Welcome to Carly Tackles, a printer riser with storage for your paper. This build is similar to the one we used to make our monitor stands, with a few different twists. One, I want to use material that isn't wide enough and deep enough on its own. I'm going to have to piece that together. Two, I want to try to use less material so I can save on lumber cost. Three, the drawer I'm going to make is going to be stronger in this build to hold reams of paper. And four, the dimensions determined by the contents in the drawer instead of what I want to put on the riser. To make sure I have plenty of room for a ream of paper to fit inside of the drawer, I determine the length of that ream of paper plus the materials used to make the drawer, which makes my top come out to 20 by 13 inches. Now for the size, this is your total height. I needed it tall enough to hold the ream of paper and the drawer, but short enough that it fits under my monitor. I'm also trying to get the most out of this piece of wood as I can, which is going to involve me gluing different pieces together to make the sides and the top. I'm setting my table saw fence to 2.5 inches. I will be able to get two 2.5 inch strips from this one piece. I will then glue these two pieces back together, but in a different way so that they equal 9 inches in length. I also need to cut a 2.5 inch wide strip from my big piece. That strip I will then cut into 3 pieces that we'll use for our sides. What remains will make up our top. I'm measuring 21 inches from each side. That should give me 2 pieces that I can glue together to make the top. Now I'm making them 21 instead of 20. That way it's a lot easier for me to glue them together. They don't have to be perfectly lined up. And if I have any glue squeeze out, I can just cut it off. For the 2.5 inch strip, I'm measuring 13 inches and I should be able to get 3 of those in this one piece. I'm using my Bosch 10-inch miter saw to make these cuts. The next step is to glue our top and side pieces together. I'm dabbling a little glue on the inside of the 2 pieces that will form the top. I also have set aside the Bessie parallel clamps to help hold the 2 pieces together when they're ready. And remember, we made these boards extra long so they don't have to be perfectly lined up. For the side pieces, I'm starting with the 2 that are 13 inches long, and these do need to be lined up and flush. Next, I'm grabbing one of the 9-inch pieces and I'm putting glue on the edge and I'm attaching it to the other 9-inch. So this one will be 18 inches long, but I'm going to pair it up with a 13. And I'm putting the 13 in the middle, and then when we're all done gluing, I will take it over to the miter saw and cut it. Now just a note, there is no glue between piece 2 and piece 3. I'm just utilizing the same clamp to hold them all together. So I'm only gluing piece 1 and 2 together and 3 and 4 together, but not all 4 of them together. The glue has dried and now I have 3 pieces, top and 2 sides. As I stated earlier, I'm going to cut off the little extra ends on the side piece that was 18 inches. Now I have 2 sides that are both 13 inches long. Our top piece was 21 inches, so I'm taking it over to the table saw. And I'm taking a little bit off both sides just to make sure I have smooth edges. So I'm incrementally cutting it down to 20 inches long. And then I'm double checking the width. I think there's a little bit more I can take off. I only want it to be 13 inches. Side pieces were 2.5 glued together, which made 5. I only want the height of these to be 4 1/4. So I'm taking them also over to the table saw and cutting them down. The first one, I just ran it through the table saw at 4.5 and just removed all the excess off of one side. And then I realized I should probably take a little bit off of both sides, so I corrected that on the second piece. We finally have our top and our two sides at the dimensions that we need. When you want to use a nicer wood than plywood, but you don't want to pay an arm and a leg for those super wide pieces, you can normally get away with buying like a 1x6 or 1x8 and cutting them and then gluing them together. I'm preparing my table saw to cut a groove into the side pieces. The height of the blade needs to be 1/2 inch. I have a 1/2 inch dado in, and I'm making sure that I'm a 1/2 inch away from my fence. When I was making the monitor stand, I only used a 1/4 inch dado. But remember, we want an extra strong bottom drawer to handle those paper reams, so I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch material for that. You need to cut this groove into both side pieces. I'm putting a little glue on the top, and when I place the side piece, I'm making sure the groove end is towards the top, which will really be the bottom when we flip this all over. I'm using a 90-degree positioning square to help hold my side pieces in their proper placement. I'm also using Rockler's clampets, the ones that are meant for 3/4 inch materials, to help hold those in place, and a bunch of quick grip clamps. If you are interested in any of the tools and gadgets, check out the video description for product links. While I have my dado in, I'm going to cut the groove for the front of the drawer. I do need to lower the height of the blade to a 1/4 inch, but the fence can stay the same. For my drawer, I'm using a 1/2 inch maple plywood. I removed the dado and turned my regular saw blade. Now I'm going to cut this piece into the front for the drawer as well as the bottom for the drawer. Make sure the side you cut the groove in is against the fence. The height of the drawer will be 5 inches. We still need to trim down the piece we're going to use for the bottom drawer. It should be a 1/2 inch less in width than our drawer front. I am measuring in a 1/4 inch on each side. This will help me when gluing the drawer bottom into the front, making sure that it's properly centered. Put some rough edges on that drawer bottom. I took my hand sanding block and just sanded them smooth. To help to hold the drawer at a 90-degree angle, I'm using the 90-degree positioning squares that I've used previously. I originally purchased them for cabinets, and I find myself using them all over the place. If you're interested in these, I have the links for them in the video description below. While the glue dries, I'm taking measurements for the sides and back of the drawer. Instead of just measuring it, I just put the piece right on the drawer and make a mark. It works pretty slick. I'm using the side piece I just cut to measure out the second side piece. To determine the length of the back piece, you need to account for your internal dimensions of your shell and the thickness of your side pieces. Cut the length a little less than your measurement. For the inside drawers, I am using a 1/2 inch thick regular plywood. This is not something you're going to see, so I didn't want to waste my maple on the inside. To help hold the material in place and keep my 90-degree angles, I'm using Rockler's clampets, designed for 1/2 inch material. I will also put a clamp on the very bottom. Before I call it good and let it dry, I want to measure the back width and the front width and make sure they're square. If you find your front is sticking out a little bit wider than your back, you can grab another clamp and just slightly adjust it. It's time for a little test run. If it does not slide smoothly, don't fret. We can take some sandpaper and sand the edges, as well as Johnson paste wax. That normally does the trick. Measure 3/4 of an inch from each side of your drawer front and make a mark. This will account for the thickness of the material and help us glue our drawer sides and back in place. The dry fit test looks good, so I'm going to apply some glue to the bottoms and the front of this piece. I start placing clamps at the bottom, and then I measure before I apply the clamps at the top. I'm making sure the drawer sides are lined up to the bottom. Clamp it and let it dry. Now we can install our hardware. I place a piece of blue paint tape in the middle. I measure to find the exact center and make a mark on the blue paint tape versus the material. I check both ways to make sure it's center, and I draw a little bit bigger line using a speed square. Using the Craig cabinet jig really helps you line this up perfect. To calibrate the height, they have this little ruler thing on the back that you can set to half of your distance. Our height is 5 inches, so I'm setting this to 2.5. You just tighten those knobs in place, and now you have a little fence that you can just sit right on your drawer. Pull knob, just take one of the drill guides and place it in the middle, and it will help you drive your drill bit perfectly center in this drawer. Line up the jig to that center line you drew and clamp it. I'm using Craig's Auto Match 6-inch clamp, automatically adjust to the thickness of your material. And you can see that little divot right there. You can see my blue pencil line. Using a 3/16 drill bit, I make a hole. Most hardware is meant to go through something thicker than a 1/2 inch material. So if your screws are a little long, you can put 2 little washers on them on the inside, and your knob fits on perfectly. The last step to help you with that smooth glide is to apply Johnson's paste wax. You can apply it to the bottom sides of your drawer, the part that fits in that groove. You can apply it to the side of the drawer. You can even apply it to the inside of that shell that the drawer slides into. Time to check our work. Now that slid a lot better than it did the first time. I did need to sand a little bit on the bottom, and then that paste wax did the rest. Now you still need to sand the outside of this box. You can see I have some glue edges. I haven't done that yet, but that's your next step. I'm not going to stain or paint this box yet because I plan on redoing an office desk, so I'm going to wait on my colors. But make sure you sand and finish your box. Thanks for watching Carly Tackles a printer riser with storage. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you'd like to see more videos similar to this and others in the Office series, please subscribe to my channel, Carly Tackles DIY, Tools and Gadgets, Tips and Tricks. And make sure you hit that bell to receive notifications when I release new content.